Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going on an adventure, a journey into the past, filled with mystery, an old map, and a very special tree. So, settle in, grab a cup of tea, and let's begin. The Whispering Willow and the Forgotten Map. Our story begins in a small, quiet town nestled by a winding river, surrounded by rolling green hills. This town was called Oakhaven, and it was known for its ancient oak trees and a sense of timeless peace. In Oakhaven lived a young woman named Eleanor, a history enthusiast with a keen eye for forgotten things. Eleanor had just inherited her grandmother's old house, a charming but slightly dilapidated cottage on the edge of town. Eleanor's grandmother, Alara, had been a fascinating woman. She was a storyteller, a collector of curious objects, and a firm believer that every item had a story to tell. Eleanor had spent many happy summers in that house as a child, listening to Alara's tales of adventurers and brave heroes. Now the house felt quiet, filled with memories and the faint scent of old books and lavender. One sunny morning, Eleanor decided it was time to start sorting through Alara's belongings. The house was full of boxes and dusty furniture, each corner holding a potential discovery. She started in the attic, a cavernous space filled with shadows and dust motes dancing in the sunlight that streamed through a small window. It was a treasure trove of the past, old clothes, antique toys, and stacks of faded photographs. As she was moving a heavy, wooden chest, she noticed a loose floorboard beneath it. Her curiosity piqued. Eleanor knelt down and carefully pried the board open. Inside, wrapped in a piece of aged velvet cloth, was a small, intricately carved wooden box. It wasn't locked, and as she lifted the lid, her breath caught. Inside, nestled on a bed of dried rose petals, was a single parchment map. It was old, very old, with the edges frayed and the ink faded in places. The map didn't show Oakhaven or any town she recognized. Instead, it depicted a winding path through a dense forest, leading to a prominent feature marked with a symbol she couldn't quite decipher. Next to the map was a small, tarnished silver key and a folded, yellowed letter. Eleanor carefully unfolded the letter. The handwriting was elegant but difficult to read. It was in Alara's hand, but it was addressed to Eleanor, written many years ago, and sealed with a forgotten wax stamp. "My dearest Eleanor," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then you have found the first clue. This map, my dear, holds a secret, a journey that I was never able to complete. It leads to something precious, something that has been waiting for generations. But it is not a journey for the faint of heart. You must follow the path, understand the clues, and trust your instincts. The key will unlock the final secret. Be brave, my clever girl. The Whispering Willow holds the answer." Eleanor reread the letter several times. The Whispering Willow? What was that? Her grandmother had always been mysterious, but this was a new level of enigma. The map itself was a work of art. It was hand-drawn, with small, detailed illustrations of trees and hills. The path on the map started at a location marked with a small drawing of a stone archway, then wound its way through what looked like an ancient forest, finally ending at the mysterious symbol. Eleanor spent the rest of the day researching. She pored over local history books, old records, and even ancient folklore, but found no mention of a whispering willow or a specific stone archway that matched the map's depiction. It was as if the map led to a forgotten part of Oakhaven, or perhaps somewhere else entirely. She decided to start by examining the map more closely. As she traced her finger along the winding path, she noticed tiny, almost invisible symbols scattered along the route. A small bird, a curled fern, a half-moon. They seemed like a series of smaller clues, but without context, they were meaningless. The next morning, determined to solve the mystery, Eleanor decided to explore the area surrounding her grandmother's cottage. Her grandmother had always talked about the old woods behind the house, a place where she would often walk and gather herbs. It was a dense forest, largely untouched by development. As she walked through the familiar woods, now seeing them with new eyes, she looked for anything that resembled the stone archway on the map. She walked for what felt like hours, the sunlight dappling through the leaves, the air fresh and cool. Just as she was about to give up and head back, she stumbled upon it. Hidden behind a thick curtain of ivy and overgrown bushes was a weathered stone archway. It was partially collapsed, covered in moss, but unmistakably the one from the map. Her heart thumped with excitement. She had found the starting point. Following the path indicated on the map, which was barely visible on the forest floor, Eleanor ventured deeper. The forest grew quieter, the trees older and taller. After about 20 minutes of walking, she heard a faint, rustling sound, different from the natural sway of the leaves. It sounded almost like a sigh. She pushed through a thicket of thorns and emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood a magnificent, ancient willow tree. Its branches drooped low, touching the ground, creating a natural, green curtain. Its leaves were a vibrant green, but what was truly remarkable was the sound it made. Even with the slightest breeze, the leaves seemed to whisper a soft, ethereal sound that sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. This had to be the Whispering Willow. As she approached the tree, she noticed something unusual. One of its thick, gnarled roots, larger than the others, seemed to have a small indentation, a hollowed-out space. It was almost hidden by the drooping branches. Peeking inside, she saw another small, wooden box, similar in style to the first one, but this one looked older and more weathered. This box, however, was locked. Eleanor's hand went instinctively to her pocket, where she had carefully placed the silver key from her grandmother's attic. With a trembling hand, she inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. Inside, there wasn't another map or a letter. Instead, there was a single, smooth, river stone. It wasn't just any stone. It had a strange, swirling symbol carved into its surface. It was the same symbol that marked the end point on the map. Beneath the stone lay a small, rolled-up piece of very fine silk. Eleanor carefully unrolled it. On the silk was a series of symbols, a sequence of the small illustrations she had noticed on the map: the bird, the fern, the half-moon. Below them, written in her grandmother's elegant script, were a few words: "The journey is not just a path, but a story." Each symbol a chapter. "The river holds the key." Eleanor felt a thrill of discovery. This wasn't just about finding something. It was a riddle, a puzzle her grandmother had laid out for her. The river holds the key, Eleanor repeated to herself. Oakhaven was defined by its river, the River Serene, which wound its way through the town and beyond. The small illustrations on the silk fabric must refer to locations along the river. But which part of the river? The map only showed the forest path. She returned to the house, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She spread out the map and the silk fabric on her grandmother's old wooden table. The bird, the fern, the half-moon. They seemed to be landmarks. Eleanor decided to focus on the first symbol, the bird. She remembered a small, abandoned bird sanctuary further downstream on the banks of the River Serene. It was a place her grandmother used to visit frequently. It seemed like a good place to start. The next morning, armed with her map, the stone, and the silk, Eleanor cycled along the river path. The air was crisp, and the river flowed gently beside her. Soon, she arrived at the old bird sanctuary. It was overgrown, but the stone walls still stood, providing shelter for various bird species. As she walked through the sanctuary, looking for anything that resembled a clue, she noticed something unusual. One of the old stone birdhouses, larger than the others, seemed to have a small, almost invisible inscription on its base. It was a tiny, faded image of a bird, identical to the one on her silk fabric. Her heart raced. This had to be it. She carefully ran her fingers over the stone. Near the bird's symbol, she felt a slight indent. She remembered the smooth river stone she had found at the Whispering Willow, the one with the swirling symbol. Could it be a key to this? She tried pressing the stone into the indent. It fit perfectly. As she pressed, a small, hidden compartment in the base of the birdhouse clicked open. Inside was a single, tightly rolled scroll, tied with a thin, leather cord. Eleanor unrolled the scroll carefully. It wasn't a map or a letter this time. It was a series of beautifully drawn botanical illustrations. Each illustration depicted a different plant, and beneath each plant, a single word was written in her grandmother's elegant hand. The first illustration was a fern, the exact type shown on her silk fabric. Beneath it, the word, bridge. The second illustration was a moonflower, a delicate flower that blooms only at night, symbolizing the half-moon from her silk. Beneath it, the word, island. The third illustration was a water lily. Below it, the word, spring. Eleanor looked at the words, then back at the silk fabric. It was a sequence: bird, fern, half-moon. Now she had words for the other two symbols, bridge and island. And a new symbol, the water lily, with the word spring. This was definitely a more complex puzzle than she initially thought. The river holds the key her grandmother had written. A bridge over the river. An island in the river. A spring near the river. Eleanor knew of an old, disused stone bridge further along the River Serene, about an hour's walk from the bird sanctuary. It was called Willow Creek Bridge, named for the willow trees that lined the creek flowing into the river nearby. She decided to head there next. The walk was peaceful. She enjoyed the solitude, the sounds of nature, and the thrill of the chase. When she arrived at Willow Creek Bridge, she examined it closely. It was an ancient bridge built of rough-hewn stones, covered in moss and lichen. She remembered the fern's symbol on the silk. Where would a fern grow on a bridge? She noticed that along the base of the bridge's archway, where the stone met the water, there were several ferns growing in the cracks. One particular fern, larger and more vibrant than the others, seemed to be growing in a tiny crevice that looked suspiciously like the symbol on her silk. Eleanor knelt down and carefully examined the crevice. It was almost perfectly shaped like a curled fern. She ran her hand along it, searching. Just above the crevice, almost hidden by the fern's fronds, she felt a slight roughness, a small indentation. She remembered the river stone with the swirling symbol. It had been used to unlock the compartment at the bird sanctuary. Could it be used again? She pressed the stone into the indent near the fern. Again, a soft click. This time, a small, waterproof wooden box slid out from a hidden cavity in the bridge. Inside, there was a single, beautifully crafted silver locket. It was tarnished with age, but the intricate design was still visible. On one side of the locket was a small, delicate engraving of a half-moon. On the other side, a small, hidden latch. Eleanor pressed the latch. The locket opened to reveal a tiny, folded piece of paper. On it, in her grandmother's handwriting, were just 3 words, "The moon's reflection." The half-moon symbol from the silk, the moonflower from the scroll, and now a locket with a half-moon and the words, "The moon's reflection." It all pointed to one thing, something that happened at night, perhaps when the moon was visible. There was a small island in the middle of the River Serene, not far from the bridge. It was known locally as Moonstone Island, due to a local legend about a glowing stone found there centuries ago. It was only accessible by a small, rickety rowboat kept by a local fisherman, or by wading across the shallow parts of the river when the water was low. Eleanor decided to wait until dusk. She returned to the cottage, ate a quick dinner, and packed a flashlight. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the landscape, she headed back to the river. The air was cooler now, and a gentle mist was beginning to rise from the water. When she arrived at the riverbank opposite Moonstone Island, the moon was already a crescent, hanging low in the sky, its light reflecting on the calm surface of the water. She found the fisherman's old rowboat and carefully pushed it into the water. The short row to the island was peaceful, the only sounds the dip of the oars and the distant call of an owl. Once on the island, Eleanor looked around. It was small, rocky, and covered in dense undergrowth. She pulled out the locket and shone her flashlight around, looking for any clue related to the moon's reflection. She walked towards the center of the island, where the ground was slightly higher. There, nestled amongst some large, smooth stones, was a natural pool of water, reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. It was beautiful, tranquil, and in the center of the pool, almost entirely submerged, was a large, flat stone. Eleanor remembered the moonflower from the scroll, the flower that bloomed at night. This seemed like the perfect spot. She carefully waded into the cool water towards the stone. As she got closer, she saw it. Carved into the surface of the submerged stone was a faint, almost imperceptible image of a half-moon, the same as on her locket. She carefully touched the carving. It felt slightly indented. Then she remembered the locket. What if the locket was the key here? She tried placing the locket onto the carving. It fit. As the locket settled into the groove, the large stone in the pool began to slowly, almost silently, pivot. Beneath the stone, in a dry cavity, was a small, lead-lined box. It was old, very old and heavy. Eleanor's heart hammered in her chest. This felt like the final step. She opened the box. Inside, there was no more parchment, no more silk, no more clues. Instead, there was a single, magnificent emerald pendant, shimmering with an inner light. It was set in a simple silver setting, elegant and timeless. And beneath it a final, small, handwritten note from her grandmother. Eleanor carefully picked up the note. It was delicate, almost crumbling with age. "My dearest Eleanor," it read, "if you hold this emerald, you have completed the journey. This is not just a jewel, but a symbol. For generations, our family has held a secret, a legacy. The Whispering Willow, the river's path, the moon's reflection, they all lead to this. This emerald represents the richness of our history, the value of discovery, and the power of the stories that connect us." It was said that whoever found this, whoever followed the path with courage and curiosity, would become the next guardian of our family's tales. Your great-great-grandmother, a brave woman named Lillian, created this path, this treasure hunt, for those who would come after her. She believed that true wealth lies not in gold, but in knowledge and adventure. Now, the story is yours to tell, to share, to add your own chapter. The true treasure, my dear, is the journey itself and the stories we uncover along the way. With all my love, Alara. Eleanor held the emerald pendant, its cool weight comforting in her palm. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a link to her past, a testament to her grandmother's love, and a challenge to continue a family tradition. Her great-great-grandmother, Lillian, had created this intricate treasure hunt, ensuring that the legacy would be passed down to someone who truly valued curiosity and adventure. She thought about the journey, the dusty attic, the hidden map, the ancient Whispering Willow, the river's quiet secrets, and the moonlit island. Each step had been a discovery, not just of physical objects, but of her own determination and connection to her ancestors. Eleanor returned to her grandmother's cottage, the emerald pendant now resting safely in her pocket. The house felt different now, no longer just a collection of old things, but a place brimming with life and stories waiting to be told. She realized that her grandmother hadn't just left her a house. She had left her a purpose. From that day forward, Eleanor dedicated herself to researching her family history, especially the stories of Lillian and Alara. She learned that Lillian had been an intrepid explorer and a gifted storyteller who believed that history should be discovered and experienced, not just read in books. The emerald was a symbol of this philosophy. Eleanor started her own collection of stories, inspired by her family's legacy. She began sharing them, just as her grandmother had, starting with the tale of the Whispering Willow and the forgotten map. And as she spoke, she realized the true treasure wasn't the emerald itself, but the joy of the journey and the profound connection to the past it provided. The emerald was simply a beautiful reminder. The end. And that, my dear listeners, is the story of Eleanor, her grandmother Alara, and the extraordinary treasure hunt that brought them closer than ever. It reminds us that sometimes the most valuable treasures are not found in chests of gold, but in the adventures we undertake and the stories we share. Did you enjoy today's adventure? If so, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new one. And if you know someone who'd love to learn English through exciting tales, feel free to share this video with them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.